Good morning, good evening, wherever you are. It's been quite a night, quite a dramatic day, night, wherever in the world you are. This is Ask George to reflect on it. How was that for you before we start this?
Really good fun. I mean, it was really enjoyable, wasn't it? Impossible to know what was going to happen. To be honest, I thought Australia had it won a couple of times, but I thought England battled. And maybe there were a couple of mistakes from Australia as well, but it was a really good competitive day of Test cricket. Really good fun.
It's funny, it felt like you didn't know how it was going to end, but you did sort of know that Jimmy Anderson and Stuart Broad would be involved in it together at some point.
Not sure. Yeah, I was trying to work out. Actually, I think it's 2013, the last time England had a successful draw like that. I think it was that Auckland game with Matt Pryor, Monty Panesar crawling into his ground, and all that. So it's a long time. I mean, obviously, Jimmy's done it before in Cardiff, but England haven't had a hard-fought draw like that for a long time.
Should we start with that then? Ben Rigby asks simply, how nice is it to see a drawn Test match, where I guess we've had, quite pretty full days cricket?
Yeah. We saw a draw in Melbourne on the last tour, and it wasn't nice at all. It was terribly dull. But yeah, what was nice is that it was a really good competitive game. Look, I only was here for the last 2 days because I was in isolation for the previous, and it was an absolute joy. There was a really classy century from Usman Khawaja, and today England really battled against a very good Australia attack. So yeah, you're right. I mean, it's a reminder that Test cricket over 5 days still producing a draw could be a lot of fun.
And before the battling of the afternoon, there was sort of this individual morning innings from Zach Crawley that felt completely out of kilter with with the rest of the day and the tension. And so Matt Wright just asking, for all the talk of him looking the part in Test cricket, why is his first class average so ordinary, and B, just reflecting on that knock today. I mean, we've seen him do that a couple of times, haven't we? Did it was Ahmedabad's, obviously the 260 odds. It sort of felt like outliers, didn't it, in the last year or so? But yeah, how good was that in isolation, given everything else that went on today?
Yeah, it was excellent. It reminded me actually of his innings in Joburg. I think he got 70 odd.
60
and it was only 60. Okay, I think he hit 12 or 13 boundaries in that innings. They were all in front of square against some very quick bowlers on a very quick wicket. And I thought that was a terribly good sign then. So why is his average so low? Well, because he's a talented player who's been promoted far too early through no fault of his own. But, we know that England have these, pretty serious top order issues. And so they've gone for a talented youngster who's not quite ready and he's learning on the job. The worry with that is always whether it would damage him. But he seems to be a pretty phlegmatic, confident character. And there is a lot to like. He's got a lot of time on the ball, hasn't he? And what you see, Trevor Bayliss pointed this out years ago, before his Test debut. He said something along the lines of, watch how often people misfield off him. And we saw it 3 or 4 times today, because he hits the ball so much harder than you think. He doesn't look as if he hits it that hard, but he is quite strong and fit. And he times the ball absolutely beautifully. So, huge amount to like. He obviously he's younger than most of the guys in this team, but maybe he's not a bad little example of where England are as a Test team, in that he is raw, but there's just a little bit of encouragement there.
And if you go back to his comments before the game, in hindsight, and probably at the time as well, it was, I guess, quite nice to, obviously it sort of gave Australia something to feed off, didn't it? But probably quite nice to see someone that young, that experienced in Ashes terms, to be bullish about their own game. And I guess especially after the 2021 that he had, some sort of back their talent and know where their game's at, if that's fair.
Yeah, and I do think you've got some of 2021 and his record. You do have to take with a little bit of a pinch of salt, because he did play in conditions in India which was about as testing as you will find in Test cricket, and certainly very foreign to a guy who's been playing on, wickets in Canterbury or wherever. So, you have to accept that. But also, there were flaws exposed by very good bowling attacks over the English summer. And he's going to have to work on that. And that's absolutely fine. That's part of the role. That's part of the job. So, as you say, there's a lot to like. He hits the ball beautifully. He's got to tighten up a little bit, no way around it. But England have tried 3 openers in this series, and he's been the most impressive by quite a long way.
Alex Althmas, can anything be done to fix Haseeb Hamid's low hands? He looks constantly surprised that the ball bounces. He says, obviously, this was something people spoke a lot about even before this squad had come out, really, wasn't it? Until when it became inevitable that he was likely to open up. I think most of us felt it would go something like this way in Australia.
Right. Well, that was a fear, yeah. I didn't think it would be this bad. I mean, is he averaging 9 or something?
Yeah, it's gone
pretty
under
good.
10.
Was it 10? So it's been pretty grim. And he had a chance even today. What could be done? I mean, I think there's not a lot of point playing him in the next game from a team perspective, and I would be very inclined to play Ben Stokes at top order batter. I mean, I'm absolutely sure he could open, or he could bat number 3. But you could maybe open with Milan. You could do that. Anyway, what you do to fix Hamid, I don't know. He might not be good enough, He might, might have a fundamental problem there. But I'm quite sure that he'll go back to Peter Moore's and county cricket, and Peter will put it back together again as well as anyone will. And it's sad, really.
He's obviously one of the very good examples on this trip of where that 2-3 year plan has sort of fallen apart at different points. I mean, he's a victim of circumstance, and obviously you're not a victim if you're picked. I mean, it's a great opportunity, but this was never the long-term plan, was it? 2-3 years ago.
No, you're exactly right. And he has been picked as a bit of a hunch. Obviously, I think England thought that Sibley and Burns would be their opening pair here, probably. So he has been picked as a bit of a hunch, and actually quite a small sample size to do well in quite different conditions for county cricket. And he has been found wanting. So you would have to say that the selectors have got that wrong, and it's a damn shame. Because there's, again, lots to like. There's no shortage. I mean, he quite often goes. Well, actually, I think it was Joe Root went to the nets immediately he was out today. I think Haseeb went home, actually. He went back to the hotel, rather. I think he left the ground, which is unusual. But, he's working very hard. As I say, it might be that he has just found his level, which is an unfortunate thing to say, but he is still a young fella. And he will, no doubt, work very hard. And he can come again. But the specific question about his technique, I don't actually feel qualified to answer, because I actually quite like, what we do, though, don't we, is quite often mistake elegance for technical excellence. And he is elegant. But there were times when he's been lunging onto the front foot. I mean, to be fair, it's a really good bowling attack, and the wickets have done a fair bit more than we thought they would. Yeah,
and if you do have a tendency to play with low hands, then that's not necessarily a flaw, because if you go to the subcontinent, for example, and then suddenly that becomes that can be quite a good thing on low pitch, isn't it? I guess it's as you say, sort of a combination thing, isn't it? Where if you've got low hands on bouncy pitches with tall, quick bowlers,
I'm not sure that it needs to be a problem.
No,
I'm not sure that it needs to be a problem, because he's not actually leaving the ball with great skill, for whatever the word is. I would have thought that he could ride the bounce of the ball a bit better, but he is sort of getting on the front foot. I would have thought that was more the issue than the low hands, personally. I keep hearing the low hands thing. Maybe other people are right. I don't know. As I say, you can still play with low hands. He's not leaving the ball particularly well, is he? But to be fair, there is a lot of seam movement and a fair bit of variable bounce in these wickets. Yeah. And this is a very good new ball attack. In fact, Cummins and Stark's probably never bowled better. I think Stark has a better strike rate than, Dennis Lilly and people. They're a good attack.
David asked why wouldn't Pope keep in Hobart? He says, obviously Sam Billings has been called up to the squad. Sounds like Johnny Bairstow, they're going to see how Johnny Bairstow is faring. So potentially there are three-ish options if everyone pulls through.
Sure. Pope could keep. That's an option. Of course it is. The reason he wouldn't is because he's been designated keeper in 6 first-class games. So he's relatively raw and inexperienced. But he could come back into the side as a batter. Or you could bring in Billings, and he could maybe bat at 7. I suspect they won't play Leach, but I might be wrong. And if you did that, and if you pushed maybe Stokes or Milan up the order, if you had Stokes opening, which I think he could do, then you could make room for Lawrence as well. And I wonder if they're inclined to think that they can play Lawrence and Root as spinners. I know that sounds outlandish in a way, but I do know that Lawrence was told that one of his ways into the side might be to be a spinner. I don't know how many first class wickets he's taken. I don't think it's as many as 20, is it? So anyway, that's a possibility. I don't know. I haven't actually looked that far ahead. I mean, some of the bowlers looked really quite weary, didn't they, as well?
Poor old Mark Wood. I mean, he was bowling with bloodied whites, and then ended up, and then obviously his final act in the game was he thought he was going to have to be carried off for a second, didn't you? And he got floored. Yeah, I mean, obviously England hope he probably more than anyone else sort of can come through, especially if Hobart is flat.
I don't know. I have no idea what Hobart's going to be like, to be honest with you, but I do know that we're basically playing there in the night time. I mean, the game starts at 3 o'clock. It's substantially cooler. I don't know whether dew will be an issue. I don't really know. I would always be inclined to include a spinner, but it sounds as if they are inclined not to. And as I say, there might be an inclination to look at Lawrence as well. But I don't know. That's a bit of a hunch. I'm just saying, hey, you could line together. I mean, it looks like, Stokes are best who are going to Hobart. If they're anywhere near fit, they've given performances in this game which suggests they're going to play again, doesn't it? But don't think Bairstow is going to be able to keep. And obviously Butler can't. So, you have a decision. I think Billings will make his Test debut at Hobart.
Mentioned Woods. Sumiari asks, he doesn't get as many wickets as he deserves most of the time. Is it bad luck, or is there something else that goes against him, Tez?
It's good shout. It's a good point. I've been thinking about this a fair bit. I think there's a few things. I mean, England's slip cordon and wicket keeping hasn't been very good, and that's cost him some wickets. Wickets in England probably don't suit him quite often, and maybe he's sometimes given a slightly simplistic role, which seems to be the case with some England bowlers. In the same way that Ben Stokes is that awful enforcer role, and I always thought he could have been a terribly skillful swing bowler. And maybe it's a bit the same with Mark Wood. When he started his career, he was terribly good at reverse swing in particular, and he has got some skills. Is he maybe bowling a slightly, maybe is he bowling slightly back of the length? I don't know. He bowls in a very attacking way, and when batters get the edge, it sometimes goes for 4 rather than to hands. I think he's more valuable than those stats suggest, and I honestly do think. I wrote about this yesterday that he rattled good players. He rattled Labuschagne, Smith, Warner. He's got them all out, and at various times he's made them look bloody uncomfortable. And it's really difficult to do that. It's difficult when he could probably only bowl 24 ball spells, and they know that he could just be played out, and then the other bowlers come back on and it's a little bit more comfortable. There's not the same physical threats anyway. There's a lot to like, and he offers a different dimension to that England attack, and I think with a bit different support it would work better. Whether the stats reflect how good he is, well, they don't at the moment. But that old line about the average person has one breast and one testicle, you've got to be a wee bit careful with statistics.
And I guess to jump from him to not the opposite, but Ramsey's asked, what explains Scott Boland's effectiveness then? Obviously, the wickets he's taken, the start of his Test career has been, I think, beyond any reasonable expectation.
Yeah. So, well, the things he does well, which is he bowls straight, real straight, bowls a really good line and length, and he hits the seam, and England don't know which way the ball's going to go. I'm not positive that he does, but he doesn't need to, does he? So he's got the seam going. He's moving both ways off the seam on a very good line and length. It sounds quite simple, doesn't it? And he does it at a lively pace. He's fast medium, isn't he? Maybe sort of Woke's pace, maybe. So there's that, and there's also the fact that England played quite poorly and Australia caught very well. I mean, I do think he's done brilliantly, and he is a good bowler, but he's a wee bit flattered. I mean, it wouldn't be a shock if he didn't play 10 tests in his career still. I mean, Australia have a fair few tests in Asia coming up, don't they? Is he going to play?
Yeah. You wouldn't think so.
But it's a real, so, and then how old is he? You know, they come back from there, what is he, 34?
32 at the moment. Well, at the moment, 32.
Yeah, but by the time they finish this little run of games, okay, well, so maybe he's 33. By the end of that, how much does he play going forward? I don't know. I'm not sure that he should worry about that, right? I mean, 2 weeks ago he never played Test cricket, and now he's got a bowling average of 8 or something. Amazing. It's a brilliant story. He's had this wonderful sort of Christmas New Year period, and he really deserves it. What he does sounds simple, doesn't it? He belts out a really good line and length, and he hits the seam.
You'd say that.
Guaranteed.
You'd say, I was going to say, I mean, obviously at a very different pace to Darren Stevens, but you would say that to an extent he is, you know, far less of an unknown to England's batters than, and certainly his skill set, than you know, the Mitchell Stark bowling thunderbolts, you know, from left arm over kind of thing, or Pat Cummins bowling 90-mile-an-hour in swing Yorkers at your toe when you've just come in. That, I mean, I guess what will surprise a lot of people about Boland's success is that actually, England have seen his type, as it were.
They have. Look, these pitches are helping those sort of seam bowlers, though. There's a lot more seam movement than you would expect in Australia. But none of this is meant to take anything away from him. We were talking about this in the press box, actually, and I was comparing him to, say, Alan Richardson. I mean, he's probably got 3 or so miles an hour on Alan Richardson, hasn't he? But you know, Alan Richardson was a very fine bowler. I mean, you know, it's quite a small sample size. He's done brilliantly, and he will play on flatter wickets where he doesn't look quite as menacing. Quite a lot has fallen into place for him, but he's a really good bowler, and it's hard to begrudge someone who's clearly worked very hard and having their day in the sun. So good luck to him. And also, what is he, 7th choice fast bowler for Australia? What's the equivalent for England? Craig Overton? So there you see the chasm between the two sides right now.
We've not even seen Craig Overton, have we? Apart from a couple of stints at leg slip and sort of a short square leg a couple of tests ago. Who,
Craig? I mean, Craig was on the pitch. He was on the pitch.
Yeah, he spent a lot of time in the field, isn't it?
Look, he had one poor game, didn't he? At the end of last English summer. But Craig Overton has never let him down. I mean, he is a doughty all-round cricketer, good pair of hands, brave with the bat, brave in the field, decent nagging bowler, but maybe not quite Test quality. I mean, that's harsh.
Any chance you reckon they'd throw him
probably
in?
True.
Any chance do you think they'd throw him in on the same basis of throwing Lawrence in at Hobart?
Well, they're not throwing Lawrence in.
Not throwing him, but giving him a chance.
Well, they won't be giving away Test caps, no, nor should they. It's not that situation at all. Not least because Silverwood and Root are fighting for their leadership careers.
Yeah.
So I don't see him playing. I would think that Wokes will come back in. I think Robinson will come back in. And then you have two of them, Broad, Anderson and Wood. I suspect that Wood and Anderson look a little weary, but who knows? Who knows? I'm not, you know, they do have a few days now, but Wood did look very, very tired.
On Australia, Danny asks, how will Australia look back at not only the late declaration for sentimental reasons, but also Steve Smith's first day antics?
Okay, so I don't know. I mean, I don't know how much time was lost in all in the game. Not as much as you would think, because they kept on starting early and going on a long time.
There was probably more time lost by the stoppages for people behind the bowler's arms, stuff like that, wasn't it? That seemed to happen 20, 30 times a day.
Yeah, it happened a lot. So I don't know that they lost any time with Steve Smith. But an interesting point to ponder. They lost 2 overs after Usman Khawaja's century. That, in retrospect, looks a bit flabby, doesn't it?
Although I guess the other side of it is...
Another 12 balls, Anderson and Broad.
I guess, though, you could argue if you were Pat Cummins, I think, on the basis of these first 3 tests, that if you gave yourself 100+ overs to bowl out this England side with 3 injuries in it, and a sort of struggling top order, you'd probably Baxdale to get over the line regardless, wouldn't you? I guess to be fair, it's a lot.
Yeah, you might do, but I mean they didn't, and there was
No.
weather around. I actually think England were a bit unlucky with the weather because there's been rain all around Sydney all the time.
Am I right in
and
saying
very-
it? Am I right in saying it rained during lunch and just after the game
Yeah,
finished?
Well, there was a tiny bit of rain right after the game finished, but and it rained during the lunch break and for half an hour or so
Just
after.
came
But
at
again,
the
it
wrong
made up
times.
5. Yeah. And also Australia dropped catches. You know, Carey's actually not had a great series. Smith
dropped
put down
Bairstow.
Carey missed a run out of Bairstow.
Harris
You know,
put
there
down
were
Stokes at short leg.
So there were a few things that, you know, might have fallen Australia's way that didn't. I mean, in the end, England deserved quite a lot of credit for battling through for the draw. But yeah, it was, I don't know whether it was sentimental. You know, I mean, they were welcoming the guy back and whether that's sentimental. I mean, if you remember when England... Well, you remember when England declared, you know, Mike Atherton declared on Graham Hick just short of a century. I'm not sure that's ever really been forgiven, and I don't know that it was particularly healthy in the dressing room. So I can see that from both sides, but they definitely went on 2 overs after that. I think it was 2 overs after that, which were unnecessary. And 2 overs, you know, you bowling at Anderson and Broad could have made a difference, couldn't it?
And I guess with some, I mean, there's also something that I think I worked out earlier, that the 3 injured lads that were batted, they faced 44 and a half overs today, which for a team, you know, I guess given where England are on this tour, is a pretty decent effort to sort of pull that together when, you know, 3-0 down, 3 injuries down this test, a lot going on. Sort of good on them, I guess.
So I mean, you wonder whether England are really just finding their feet on the tour. You know, they should have gone into an Ashes series having at least 3 warm-up games, 3 first-class warm-up games. This is their 4th first-class game on the tour. Maybe that's revealing.
So should we start now?
No, really.
Winner takes all in Hobart.
Well, I don't know about that, but I don't know that England gave themselves the best chance to succeed in their preparation. Now, whether there were good reasons, I mean, I don't really. The reason this series is going ahead, the same reason the T20 World Cup went ahead, is just to keep the lights on, you know, to satisfy the broadcast. Whether that is enough, whether that's a good enough reason, yeah, it probably is in a pandemic. You know, we have to understand that compromises are necessary. To me, it feels like a series that's just have an asterisk over it forever. Anyway, I guess look, Stokes is looking very, very good as a batter now. He looked frenetic, full of movement in those first few games. And in this game, for various reasons, probably just because he settled back into the rhythms of Test cricket, he looked calm, he looked compact. He looked like a fantastically good, actually, Test batter. He's at his best, isn't he, when he's driving, scoring runs straight. And he scored quite a few runs straight. I don't think any English batter looked better. Bairstow's rarely batted best for England in both innings. Brave. Clearly his thumb is poor. And then you've probably got to cut Josh Buttler some slack. You know, his injury's so bad he's going home. We don't know what sort of medication they've had, but clearly they've had quite a lot.
I think it's safe to say England don't draw that game without the 38 balls he negotiated with his broken hand. So given the bigger picture, sort of, I guess others at perhaps a different time might not have gone out there.
Yeah, absolutely right. So he does deserve credit for that, and there's never been any lack of effort.
No.
So yeah, he it's a team effort to draw this game. I mean, you literally all of them batted, and actually even Haseeb, you know, got through that evening on the 4th day. You know, I think I don't know how it was the highest England opening stand of the tour by a long way. So they all played their part.
And I guess partially on that, just to finish, Tom Burridge asks, Chris Hill would love to tell the media that they've learned from each test. What did they learn from this test?
No, there will be things that they learned. I mean, I suppose though they were reminded of Zach Crawley's talent. They probably learned that Haseeb and Josh Buttler aren't quite there as test players right now. They learned that Stuart Broad's a fantastic competitor. They learned that Jack Leach is a brave, dogged little cricketer as well, who actually had quite a good game with bat and ball in difficult circumstances. They learned that Ollie Pope is a talented guy, or an able guy in necessity. So I suppose they learned quite a few things. There are probably some more obvious things than that, but I thought Joe Root put it pretty well. I thought this was a step in the right direction. He called Melbourne a dark day, I think it was, for Test cricket, English Test cricket, which I thought was admirably honest, because England were, you know, I don't really like the expression they lacked fight. I always think it's a bit simplistic, but they did fold really quite quickly, worryingly quickly. I mean, you know, it's never really not never, but it's rarely about fight. But it was kind of gormless. So to get a draw, to avoid the whitewash, which is embarrassing, isn't it, to be whitewashed? And obviously that we're setting the bar terribly low. That is, you know, something that we're kind of pleased with. But that's where English cricket is right now. And you know, I've seen whitewashes here before, and it's rubbish. So it's as he said, it's a small step in the right direction. And from where they were after Melbourne, that's welcome, isn't it? Look, and it will be. There's a few people playing for their careers. You know, Johnny Bairstow probably couldn't take another bad game. He really couldn't. And I don't know whether we'll see Josh Buttler as a Test player again. I've thought that before, though, but I'm really not sure we will. Stuart Broad probably couldn't have taken another bad game. So those guys have delivered under some pressure.
Ironically, a lot of those guys do a lot of their best work in adversity as well, don't they? Whether it's Stokes, Bairstow, Broad, as you say, sort of those. I guess those three. I mean, you know, even someone like Bairstow, for all of his technical difficulties he's had in his Test career, the one thing you could never be accused of is sort of lacking the stomach for it, I guess, which is sort of, I guess, what you saw today with a broken, you know, or not broken, but damaged hand and game to save and career to save.
Yes, but I don't think it was ever really about excellence or anything. They weren't particularly prepared, and they're not quite as good. And you know well, we've talked about this, but the way that you know, the English system probably doesn't set them up perfectly for a tournament, a series in Australia. You know, it's a big gap, not just in standard, but different conditions. The same within India. So, but we know all this. There's no lack of effort. There's no lack of heart or courage, physical courage. There's no, you know, I thought Jack Leach was very impressive today in that way. I mean, you know, Pat Cummins and Stark in particular, they are pretty fearsome. And that wicket was going up and down a wee bit. So, you know, and he got into line as well as anyone all day, didn't he?
Yeah. And he's more than just a blocker. He's obviously the one not out. Obviously, people remember the one not out. There's a Test 92 somewhere there. He was almost going to run a ball at one point today. He's got.
Well, he was, yeah. But I mean, I think he's a much better batter than when he scored that the one not out at Leeds. I actually think he's a much better player than he is when he scored 92. I don't know whether any of this necessarily keeps him in the side, you know, in the long term. I think there's quite a lot of work he's got to do at his bowling. But you know, the fact is that he is as good as England have, I think, right now, if Moen's not going to play. And I keep saying, don't I, he's a tougher character than he is sometimes credited. And I think he proved that again today. You can't ask anyone to give more than they can. You know what I mean? You can't ask him to be shown more than they can. He's just not. But
of course, it's easy to. Yeah. There's obviously we hear a lot about, you know, Broad's, the Varun Aaron delivery and I guess everything that's happened with his batting since then. But you know, Jack Leach had his own version of that. I think it was Morne Morkel a few years ago at Somerset, and actually, as you say, sort of coming up against Stark and Cummins to still not. I mean, I guess to be the lower order batter he has become since then, I guess, sort of says a lot for what you say there.
Yeah, it does. I mean, you wouldn't recognise Stuart Broad, would you, from the guy who hit that century at Lords in 2010,
although
11,
today
whatever.
was, I don't know, I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but it felt like he, I can't remember him getting in line more often or close to in line more often.
No, he did everything right.
For a while.
He did really well, but I mean, he loves it. He's mad for it.
Yeah.
And you could see, I was trying to remember the last time I'd seen Jimmy Anderson look so nervous when he came out to bat today. And that was when he was facing Steve Smith. It was nothing to do with physical fear or anything like that. Just bloody loves it. And you remember how where were we, Leeds in 2014, how disappointed he was, how upset when he was out for the ultimate ball of the game, well, the last ball, as it transpired. And he cried. So I thought you could see, the sort of manifestation of how much they care and stuff. And it's unfortunate that, we talk about fight and all those determination and stuff, because that's always there, or nearly always there.
100%,
well, nearly always there. I mean, sometimes these things have to manifest themselves the way they train. I still would like to see them have the determination to learn to have a tight defence with the bat, or the determination to learn never to overstep with the ball. Whatever they say, I go to training a lot, and I see Ollie Robinson overstep as much as he doesn't. And they, it's just not true to say that they stop him. So, sometimes determination is about long-term boring things, not just about, giving your all on the pitch. There's no doubt they always do that.
Yeah, no, absolutely.